All right, hello. Welcome back to Afternoon Drive here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon in Newburyport. It's pretty wild, the weather changes around here these days. It is perfect out there. Just got back from the dog park with the dogs. They enjoyed it very much. It's a perfect day to really do anything. And then I think weekend, a little bit dicey. I think Saturday's all right. Sunday, a little bit of rain maybe, but you never know, really. It's New England, and it's late October, so you never know what you're going to get. My name is Drew Moholland. Thanks for joining us for another great week. This is the last show of the week, so thanks for being on board. We had really a few great shows here over the last week or so. My guest today is Gay Pearson. She's a first-time appearance on the show here, which is always exciting. We were just talking about a few mutual friends in the music industry, but let's bring Gay right in since she beat me to the studio today. Gay, how are you?
Oh, okay. I'm kind of all revved up by.
How about you wanted me to go a little bit more?
Well, that's okay. I play at the Brown Sugar Thursday nights, and normally I have a leisurely afternoon.
Yes.
Or be outside in the weather. I go practice at the parish hall.
It can still be leisurely. Don't worry. This will be a leisurely interview.
Yeah, it's good. Good time.
We try to make it casual here. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Gabe. What's obviously you got a lot going on music wise. Well, why don't you tell us what's going on first? That's probably a good way to start here because you're a busy woman.
Well. Not really. I need a lot of downtime, and I allow for that. But no, mostly the current things. The concert that's coming up, November 17th, and so that's what I do mostly now. Spend time, behind this publicity. My sister Lee Pearson has helped with that, and it's a big help. And then I have a release coming up in the Newburyport Daily News.
Nice.
I don't know, maybe not till the last week. But anyway, so I'm a real outdoors person, and I have to be out in the fall. That's like my favorite,
So this is probably killing you a little bit. We dragged you in on a nice day. Sorry about that.
Well, I walked in the marshes. I live in Seabrook, and I make a point to walk in the marshes.
Oh, very good.
2 or 3 times.
Yes.
And,
do you get music inspiration during those walks?
Well, not so much because that usually comes from people I'm listening to, whether it's on YouTube or like sources like Brad Meldau or something has a new album. So listening to that, and then I go, oh my God, what are those chord changes? That sequence, you got to go write that down. And so I'll get derailed, into that. But that's good because
that is good.
Otherwise I wouldn't. And then just stuff around the house. I have a big house, and it's just a lot to manage, and I. Mentally not as sharp as I used to be. I forget a lot.
Oh, come on. I'm sure you're just fine. What's the, where are you from? Where are you living? You in Newburyport?
Well, I'm from Newburyport, but I live in Seabrook.
Living in Seabrook now, okay. Good. So November 17th, tell us a little bit about this show coming up. Who's a part of it? What kind of show you bring in here? What are people going to see?
Well, this is my 6th concert I will be presenting in Newburyport, started in 2012.
Becoming a veteran.
Yeah, and I had to take a 3-year break. It went up through 16, and then I was living in Maine all that time, Falmouth, Forsyth, and then I had to move, and all these things happened, and I just had to have a long break, hiatus, what do you call it? So anyway, then meanwhile I'm still composing, when I'm putting to, and I finally came up with enough for this concert since 2017. I've written 7 or 8 pieces, and actually I did perform couple of them a year ago, September, in Portland, Maine, for Dimensions in Jazz series that I got invited to. And that's when I met, when I got to play with Carl Demo, who's a jazz flutist. And he also plays bass flute, which is hopefully going to be a real draw, because who plays
that's unique.
And so, he didn't last year, but, so anyway, it was with Carl and me, and I always use Phil McGowan. He's well known in the area as a drummer, and he's now full-time teacher at Pingree, and then I had a bassist from that area, Joshua DeShearer. But for this concert, I've been using John Lockwood, who's Boston's best. This is the 3rd year, and wow,
all right.
He just was a gift from an expensive gift, but he just nailed everything, and I could totally rely on him, and I'd get. I didn't have to worry about anything with him. I just worry about myself.
That can be tough when you're worried about the drummer, right? That can be kind of a...
Well, the drummer either. I don't have to worry about the two of them together. It's a very tight...
John's on bass, was it?
Yeah, John Lockwood.
He's bass.
He's Berkeley. He's been... He's a Berkeley veteran.
Gotcha.
And...
they say bass and drums kind of drives these things, so you can...
Really,
those are
that's the rhythm section.
If those are trouble, you're in trouble, right?
Exactly.
So it's nice to have that be reliable. So how many, is it 5 pieces total? Or?
Well, it's 4. It's my quintet. Quartet, yeah.
Quartet.
It used to be a quintet. I said quintessence quintet. No.
Yeah.
So I have had a quintet, and actually this first piece you're going to play is from 2013. It is a quintet with cello. I used cello for 2 years along with flute. and piano, bass, and drums. And then I decided to switch to sax, and I found a wonderful sax player in Portland who I just happened to, hear and learn about years ago. And I invited her to play on this 2 concerts before this, and I was still doing some standards then, and I really needed a sax. And so there's something here that I want you to play with her, feature her, and just on a couple standards that.
Gotcha. What's that like when you feel a piece of music and you know you're missing something? It's as obvious as can be to the composer. What's that feeling like when you know you have to have a saxophone?
Oh, well, those are standards, nothing that I wrote, but it was because I'm not, even though I studied jazz piano for years, I'm not like part of, what I mean, not like in on the scene. Nobody asks me to be on their CDs. And I had years in Trenton and Philadelphia I had a great rhythm section there too, and I have 4 or 5 CDs from there, but it's just that I felt so exposed, like these concerts here without the sax, and I had some arrangements of standards I did and reharmonizations, and I just thought, let's feature her, and her solos are great, and then I had problems sometimes. That's the thing with not problems with the drummer, but because my ear, I still was having rhythmic weaknesses where I might skip a couple beats,
right?
When trading 4s, that's something you do, piano, bass, and drums. But I didn't know I had skipped the beats until I heard my recording. I was just mortified.
Oh,
So why the hell am I not hearing? Why does that keep happening? And Phil, he's great. He'll just follow whatever happens. The rhythm section does.
And can probably cover up some mistakes too.
Yeah, he's good with that. But
you mentioned Portland a couple of times there. What a great music city that is, isn't it?
There's a lot going on.
I've really enjoyed Portland every time. I've seen some great shows there, and it just seems like a lot of live music happening when you walk downtown, and Portland keeps coming up as a good live music scene. I kind of like that. Yeah,
the big place now, or the one that everybody seems to be playing at is Blue, downtown Portland.
Yeah.
I mean, Tracy, the sax player, this flutist I'm using now, he's played there. She was like, of all different, styles, contemporary genres, and people from the conservatory. I used to teach at the conservatory in Portland. But there's a whole jazz program now that there wasn't back then when I was teaching.
Wow.
And there's Dimensions in Jazz series run by Paul Lichter. That's every Friday night, and he puts all that together and brings in people you otherwise wouldn't get to hear from all over, I guess. And
interesting. Well, you brought a bunch of music here with you today, so let's see what did you want to? You wanted to dial up "Floating on Waves" first, is that right?
Yeah, that's up.
Absolutely.
Go chronologically, because
sure, we'll bring that right up here. You can listen in as we go, Lily, if you want to fire that away.
Clips. You're gonna start at the beginning.
Yeah, we'll start. I can bring it down. We can talk over it a little bit. We'll do both.
Yeah, this is my composition. Yeah.
All right, "Floating on Waves" here on Joppa Afternoon Drive. Thank you. When did you write this one, Gay?
2013, and it's my favorite from that concert. That's why I picked it. And a lot of the reason it's my favorite is because the cello solo, which I did not write, I asked the cellist to write it, is coming up in a bit, was just so, I couldn't stop listening to it,
Really?
Ben Noyce from Portland, who was my cellist at the time.
It's beautiful.
So this is my sister Lee playing Starting Out.
Right here?
Yeah, and then it's cello.
Have you and your sister always played music together, or grew up in a house of music, or how'd this work?
Yeah, parents in West Newbury. We couldn't. It wasn't a group. We couldn't play together. It was pretty bad. But I'm saying that as long as we don't all play together. But I chose her because this was my thing, and I wanted to give her a chance with my music, which she really wanted to do.
Yeah.
But she's the only sister
That plays, yeah.
That I would use in my concerts.
Gotcha.
That's very complicated. Anyway, so yeah, she did really well. Yeah, it's a cello solo.
Still makes you smile when you hear that, huh?
Yeah, and I think most of the hits or views on YouTube are mine. Well, not most, because that does have that's over 100, which is nothing really. I mean, but
well, it's something.
Maybe it's 200, but at least 50 are mine, I'd say.
That's beautiful. So what's it like gearing up for a show like this? Like when you're playing, I mean, is it a lot of, are you guys practicing a lot as you get closer? Do you ramp that up as you go? Yeah.
Oh, I sure do. The actual composing, like I say, it started in 2017, and it was just when I was in the mood or heard something that inspired me. But then the really grueling work, well, beyond what can be grueling in the compositions, is to notate on the finale software program all the scores, because I write scores. Well, not this, but most of them were, there's as a staff for each instrument.
Yeah.
And you have to know, you can get away with not knowing much about finale, just basic notation. But then when you get into things, we're changing time signatures, and you want to put measures closer together, and all these things that are easy to do actually, but I didn't understand, and I was just like having meltdowns trying to figure. And then I would
legitimate meltdowns.
Well, I mean, maybe no, but I mean, I could turn to a couple people. Thank God, Phil helped me. One out of transposition, which should be simple.
Yeah.
But it was for sax, and I don't know. I just was getting all mixed up. And Tracy said, "Well, no, now you've got me too high," or whatever it was. I don't know. But then my ex-husband came to my rescue many times. He's really accomplished.
Really?
With finale as a composer, okay, and so now it's like, whoa, I pretty much, I can do everything I need to do, but it's still just very time-consuming, labor-intensive to get through a score.
Does it make it easier to have these people around you to bounce these things off? I can imagine when you get all those great music brains in the room, it does make life a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, two more heads than one. I mean, they're my dream team, and another person, he was my videographer a couple concerts in Portland. He configured this. He just learned finale. When I asked him, he said, and he just put it together. He says, "Oh, I know all kinds of shortcuts." I mean, he knew shortcuts that I didn't know at all, but he could help, and so I don't like to have to run to Portland to get help, but it's all good now for this concert, but still, it's a matter of checking and double checking, and I look through and I see, oh, that's supposed to be a sharp or flat or whatever it was that it wasn't, and so I'd have to fix all stuff. And then even during the rehearsal, which was a week ago Wednesday, in the flute part, I saw another mistake. I don't know whether it's a sharp or flat, and he noticed
when
some
listening
stuff.
it back.
Yeah, no, actually during the rehearsal, I heard it.
You heard it in real time.
It was wrong. Well, I mean, wrong to my ear based on what I thought I wrote. So, I mean, that's fine. We just corrected them. But when you come to rehearsal, you hope that everything is in place because you don't want to waste time.
Right.
I mean, we had 4 hours, but we had 8 or 9 pieces to go through. Well, 10 actually. And you just can't. Things just take more time.
Now, again, we're joined here by Gay Pearson on Job Afternoon Drive. Would you call yourself a perfectionist, Gay? Because it seems like you hear that one false note, and I can tell that you will not let it go.
Well, I don't know. Wouldn't label myself. It jars my ears because I knew. It's just because it was certain notes that I chose, a certain sequence of notes.
Yep.
And if one is off, then it will really stand out because I've listened to it over and over.
Yeah.
And, but however, if some of those listens were on, finale, and for some reason I did not pick it up on finale. So I don't know, but in the actual rehearsal time, thank goodness I did, because it was important. I mean, sometimes to me it's not that important. But if it's like an octave, or if it's unison with something I'm doing, or the bass, and it's off, then it might stand out.
Now you're a pro, and you're playing with these pros, and does it ever get pressure on each individual part? Do these people ever feel the pressure of playing in these, in these groups where everybody's kind of knowing what they're doing and everybody's sharp as can be?
Yeah, no, John Lockwood, he actually called me about something. He said, "What is this rhythm?" I had something in 9/16 after something in 4/4 that accelerated. He didn't understand why.
This is how I'm picturing him calling you, ripping through paperwork here.
Yeah, I mean, 11 pages. That's the other thing. I try to reduce page numbers by putting measures closer together.
Yeah.
But then, that takes a lot of time, and I could have done a better job. But so, something's in 9/16 that I figured he would just.
What do you got there? A Sharpie? Is that a Sharpie going?
What?
Is that a Sharpie? You got the yellow Sharpie there, marking.
Oh, highlight. I highlight. I'm addicted to highlighters.
Addicted to highlighters. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a fun little fact about you.
It's been a fact for years.
So what are you highlighting on those? What's the? Maybe this is common in your line of work. I'm not familiar.
No, it could be dynamics because even I will overlook something I want, and I don't care necessarily to distinguish between medium soft and medium loud. I mean, it's very hard to.
Yeah.
It's a subtle.
Can I show this on the camera? This
Yeah,
would be a good visual for the. Here, let me throw this on there. I don't know if you can see that. We got highlighters all over this page here. For those of you watching on the television, I find that to be very funny.
One that's really kind of a mess. But see, I'm okay with the messes because I know what I'm doing. Yeah, but I have to clean it up for the other players. That's the thing.
This one will be good too. There you go. So that's not only the highlighter, but that's you got the. I don't think you'll be offended for me to call that. There's some chicken scratch on there. You got the.
Yeah, because it's stuff that I wanted to play that I thought of later, and the other players don't need to know.
I was going to say, so you don't have to relay that to anybody because that's just
right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's impending.
That's your masterpiece.
And then 9/16, so he 1 2 3. So if you break it down, 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2. So that's 9. 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So then I have 4 measures there, but that's like for a drum solo. So
Gotcha.
I haven't yet rehearsed with the drummer because he couldn't come. So that's the other thing, is getting it all together with him, and then we have a warm up the day of and hope like crazy, it all comes together because that's our only chance to play together.
Now, when you're accomplished like your group here, can everybody take this sheet of music, go home, and pretty much come back and be on the same page? Or is there some working out? What you just did to me with the clapping and everything, is that part of the rehearsal? Like, this is how it's going to sound. This is the rhythm. This is the pace.
Well, they have this well in advance.
So they already know it.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
yeah. But that doesn't mean it's going to come together right away.
Right. I mean, it's not an easy process where one take and we're all good? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, sir. Well, it depends. Like this Floating on Waves, actually, we did. It was just kind of a once through. Yeah, but that's not the same flutist. Well, it's not because it's not, but it's a local. I wanted to feature him, Albert Lamar, whom some listeners may hear. He's a very fine alto flute improviser who my teacher, Vardan Ovsepian, had worked with and highly recommended. And the reason I wanted to include him on one piece, which I figured this is a good one to take out because there's no cello now anymore. So he's playing the cello part and then improvising.
Is this a sinister endeavor? Is that where we're going?
Oh, no, I'm talking about what you just played.
It's the
Floating
same.
on
Okay,
Waves.
this is Floating on Waves. Okay, sorry. I
Yeah.
thought you were moving to the next one. No, okay, I got you.
Yeah, so I was just saying that, what was I saying? Oh, it's a chart. See, I do have some charts where it's just like in the melody and then the chord symbols. And that's basically except for the piano solo at the beginning, that's written out. But
what's the longest it's ever taken to, say you're trying to get one piece down? Has there been one piece that has just been a grind? We're not getting it. We're working on it. What's the longest finally you got it? What's the longest time that process has taken?
You're talking about the rehearsal of it with the
more
players,
like the rehearsal.
not the writing, because I can't possibly tell you.
The rehearsal of it.
Might go on for months off now. As long as it's John Lockwood, we do it pretty. We had, like, say, 10 pieces in 4 hours, and a lot of it goes
10 pieces,
straight
4 hours. Okay.
Rehearsal, yeah. Well, we had a couple little breaks. You have to go, feed your fuel to your car. Money into the meter and stuff.
Yeah.
Just take a break.
Literally feeding the meter.
Yeah, I know where to park. I don't need to. Anyway.
You were actually, when I said that, you were laughing because you said actually, when you actually put these together from scratch, that can be months-long processes.
Yeah, but I may not do anything on it for weeks. Any given piece.
You can just walk away from it.
Yeah, sometimes I have to because it almost makes me nauseous. Sometimes I work on 2 or 3 measures over and over, and I don't know if I like it, or I might really like it, but then I think I don't really know if I come back to it if I'm gonna want to keep it or what. So it's really
have you before came back to something that maybe you thought you might like and said no and just thrown it in the trash? Has that happened before?
Not the whole thing, because what happens is, and thanks to Vardan, my former teacher, is that we write in sketches. Like I might just 4 measures at a time, or just an idea or whatever, and might not even decide what the flute will do or what the basically would just get something down,
Right.
get chord change, and then come back, and then I'll get some more ideas, and I'll come back, and then I'll have a whole 4 or 5 pages of this little notebook of sketches, but they're all over the place, and I don't know how I want to connect them. And trying to connect them is a whole nother process.
Oh, I bet.
And I go berserk because I'm flipping pages, and Varda says, well, just use, and a large. So now I'm using more large pages to
that
write
makes
on.
sense.
But yeah, because
And bigger highlighters.
yeah, and there's highlighting for that too. Yeah.
This may be a crazy question because maybe if distractions become involved, there's no chance you could do any of this. But do you have to be alone in a private place by yourself, isolated to get this done?
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine if somebody's there blending in the kitchen, that's not a great atmosphere to be doing what you're doing.
Oh no! So well, I have a cockatiel, and she chirps when I play in the high register, and I like that. Yeah, actually, that does.
Did you ever include it in a piece? That could be no. I'm just,
Oh no, you're right. I did. That's interesting. You mentioned.
Did you really? You did?
Yeah.
That's funny.
This one, it's played here, but actually, well, I think the piece is played once. It's called. If you look on the back, my Baby Blues. It was a parakeet at the time. It was late '90s.
Oh, okay.
Baby Blues. Is that what it is?
I'm not. Let's see. We got. What are you doing New Year's Eve?
Yeah, down at the bottom. It's next to the last one or something.
That's all. Second time around. Giant steps.
Well,
When lights are low.
yeah.
Oh, Precious and Playful.
Precious
Baby
and Playful,
Blues.
sorry.
There you go. Yes, track 6.
Well, what happened was I brought the bird into the studio. I was down in Broomall, Pennsylvania, and because what I did, I wanted her to be on there, and there was some chirps. I recorded some chirps at home, and then the engineer overdubbed some chirps. But the ending part, I squeezed the bird. I don't know if I should say, as you're, and so there was a singer, a very well-known singer in Philadelphia at the time, and she's on there. And she took it out. It was kind of a gospel thing she did. I don't know. The bird was it's crazy.
So the bird had it. Did the bird get a credit on the album here? Or?
I don't think so. But everybody's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're squeezing your bird."
That's funny. Well, very good. Interesting. So what's the next track here? I want to make sure we get to all this music. The next one we had lined up was a Sinister Endeavor.
I just thought from that play. It's not my music, but I arranged it for the quintet, and I improvised some myself. But the flute part I arranged in cello, and so it's by Steve Swallow, who's a famous bass player.
All right.
I even
Fire away there, Lily. We'll do the same thing we did before.
Yeah, and I mean it goes on for a while, so.
And when did you work on this?
That was for the 2014 concert. I don't remember when I actually started doing the arrangement, but it's a really interesting piece. It's cyclical, and I just got inspired to write some solos for it. That
really,
I think it was the best piece on the concert as far as the performance and what I like the best.
And this was the quintet, right?
Yeah, there's a cello. I don't know if you can hear it very clearly. He gets a solo too. Part of the head.
Who did the artwork with the skeletons?
Interesting. My sister Lee, it was released for the Palmer Recordings in Northampton, New Hampshire. Yep. And they didn't know, the art designer, that he didn't know why I called Sinister. I'm left-handed, and I had arthritis. Well, I still do. Anyway, that's another issue. But so my sister Lee, who's a flutist who works with skeleton, she does body mapping teaching to enhance performance, especially with flutists, to reduce upper body tension, all these things. So anyway, she has these skeletons that she uses to demonstrate, joints and stuff. But I thought, so I don't know if that's why I thought of skeletons or if it was her idea.
Yeah.
But she I think she found the cartoon somewhere, and I just left it to her to,
Design it.
To decide how.
I'm not sure I've ever seen a skeleton playing stand-up bass.
Yeah. Well, there's that piece by Camille Saint-Saëns called what is that? It's long, and there's this Dance of the Skeletons. That's what makes me think of. Anyway. But the skeletons have nothing to do with the music.
Right.
I mean, it's... So yeah, this part I wrote out this solo for her. Yeah.
Very nice. So who are your influences? How'd you get here?
Well, my main influence, and there's no point going way back because I did listen to a lot of, the real giants, of course, at the time, Oscar Peterson and Bill Evans, Keith Jarrett, and more now Brad Mellett, because my teacher, he's my main influence, and he's the one that actually got me compose. And I didn't intend to. I started with him at the Musical Suite in Newburyport. In 2007, the end of 2007, and it was all, the best things happen when you least expect serendipitous encounters. And I happened to hear him on Rich Tozer's live jazz program, which actually I was on a year later, I think. But anyway, so I heard Vardan doing a solo concert at MPBN in Bangor. That's where the Rich Tozer's.
Bangor, Maine, yep.
Yeah, and so I listened. And the reason I was painted was because I felt I was musically stagnating.
Really?
I was really stuck with doing the same kinds of soloing, and I was very limited. I mean, people said, "Oh, you're so good." Well, no, they don't know what they don't know. I mean, they don't know, and I'm starting to realize, I'm really missing a lot. And how am I going? I just need a teacher. I'd had 3 or 4, but the point is that when I heard him, I got interested in studying again, and then I found out he teaches the Musical Suite, and I asked him. It was a concert in Portland Conservatory at the time, and if he would take me on. He said, "Sure," and we exchanged CDs, and once I started, I just knew he was the guy. He was the one. He steered me in a whole new direction that I had never. And it's like, wow, just as the way he approached learning technique, tools. He called them tools and topics. And so, meanwhile, I was learning, and I was, it was so intense. I only went down here, maybe every 3 weeks from, Falmouth, Maine. But that was my focus all the time. Working on these, and it just seems so huge, but things fall into place, gradually. And then I started thinking, oh my God, I could compose a little. And of course, I was listening to a lot of his compositions, and it just started, just sketches, same thing, but much smaller scale. And then by then it was 2010, I don't know when. Oh, and I was working with Phil, the drummer, on some to improve, interactive playing with combos, and he never did invite me to play in his. But anyway, that's another. And I understood, believe me. But so anyway, somewhere during 2010, I guess I started writing a little sketch with some chord changes that I'd never used before, and improvisational ideas I didn't know. And Vardan has a whole. He doesn't consider himself innovative, but he's unique, and he is pushing certain approaches with like permutations and stuff. And so it would take me 2 or 3 months to learn a certain, like a double pentatonic permutation. But once I got it, your muscle memory is like, whoa, this thing's just flying. But then how are you going to use it when you improvise? You don't just stick something in. You have to go enter it and exit it. In some kind of
There's there's structure to improvising too, isn't there? There's not just it's not just you're on the fly doing, especially when you get these quintets with all these pros. I'm sure anybody here could do an improvisation and do a solo on their own thing, right? But that's not how you stick together as a quintet. That's not how it works, right?
Right. Well, it's about chord change. You're playing over chord, and I always have, and my own chord changes or whatever is standards, which I do.
What kind of freedom is there in this kind of group? Do you when you go, are you pretty much, if you say you play back-to-back shows, am I going to hear the same version? I would think you are, right? That's the goal, is to perfect it and get it right? It's not so much, you're not going to do a different take on a song, right? Or that's not really how this works.
When you say something, you mean my compositions?
Yeah, like when you so the quintet gets together and they're playing and they're doing a piece. Is there a freedom within this kind of music to maybe take something a little bit differently? Maybe the bass player does a little extra solo or something, or does that not really happen?
Well, that's good you brought that up, because I mentioned, I don't know, at some point, maybe over the phone with you this morning, that my music, since it's mostly scored, it's a blend of written and improvised. And so what I do is, well, at least what I initially did typically was to take a certain few measures of whatever chord changes I felt would be cool to improvise over for whatever reason at the time. And then, so once you play the head or whatever I've written for everybody, then we pass the solos, or, but not the flute, because she didn't, but I'm saying like the bass, and then the drum, not so much drums, but I had drums all the time anyway, and then my solos, and the cellists, both those cellists I used, wanted to improvise, so I fit that in. So it's the listener wouldn't necessarily know where the improvised second. Usually, though, if you take like 4 measures for 4 chords, you call it a vamp, and you just loop it. You go back, and so each person can just go over it. And I have some of that in these. And so hopefully some listeners would pick up on that, what the improvisation is. But then it's blended in with the written portions. But it has to be based on chords. That's the only way I can write. Harmony is always melodies. If I have melodies, they are the result of the harmony, the top line of the or what it's hard to.
I hear you.
But
we're joined by Gay Pearson here on Joppa Afternoon Drive, going through some music ahead of a big show coming up, just a few weeks away now, right? What do you got? 3 weeks?
Yeah,
about 3 weeks.
3.5.
3.5 weeks. 17th of November. And how can people get tickets? How can people go?
There are no tickets. It's a suggested donation of $15, which
I can hold that up. You want to hold that up? Sure.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Yeah. So Sunday right here. Can we see that? November 17th.
And
there's the flyer for you. I'm not sure if we can get
that. And I have
I'll
program
read it
notes.
just to make sure.
Yeah, but I.
All right. So it's at the Unitarian Parish Hall there, Unitarian Universalist Parish Hall, 28 Pleasant Street, Newburyport. It's an early start too. Sunday, November 17th at 3 p.m.
Yeah, I always start at 3. I'm not a night person.
No, me neither.
Oh, good. So glad.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit off the air here, and I can tell you're always got the mind going on music. You're always thinking about different things to write. You're also a tennis player. That's how you unleash some steam there, huh?
Oh, yeah. It really helps to settle down nerves and all kinds of.
Does that helps you calm the nerves too?
Yeah. Yesterday was a good example. But but the thing is, I'm running out of stamina. Well, I'm doing some core exercise and things to help. But used to be, I could play 2-3 hours, and it depends, of course, like with a teacher, how much they're making you work, or whether you're standing around listening to them talk.
Yeah.
But this guy, Courtney, I told you.
Yes.
He will drill you at the net for like 45 minutes. I mean, net shots is a whole new. A lot of it's not new from my previous. I had 10 years with a teacher in Falmouth but it's just other things that I hadn't known about or were doing. And he stands. He said, "No, you brought your racket. You shouldn't bring your racket back. You have to always be." And then there's all this court geometry and then when we're actually playing and well, if you move there and then the ball, you should be moving towards the ball here. And I don't know. It's just, the volleying is a whole different set of kinds of shots from the ground strokes, the baseline, and
it's a great game to stay active and stay in shape. And
when I watch the pros, the Grand Slams, I learn more from those commentators. Sometimes I don't know what they're talking about. They're so quick to notice every little. And I'm a lefty, so lefty serve. I'm pretty good at getting it to the opponent's backhand, which is. Yep. You're a smart idea. But the thing is, you're constantly, when you play with different people, looking for the strengths and weaknesses, and you have to always think about what you can do to play to their weaknesses.
I was I went to high school in Danvers, and I captained my high school team in Danvers, and I always used to say I used to never enjoy playing lefties because it was just different, and it gave me trouble. The ball spins differently, and
we give you trouble.
That's right. You still smile about that when I say that
because I got a lot of points from a slice of backhands, one-handed. I work on two-handed for topspin, but that's still really hard for me. But
so you've heard that before that lefties give you trouble, huh?
Yeah, I got a lot of points that way, but I'm not a power player. And it doubles. Its placement is the most important.
Right.
But
it is a great game. Favorite tennis player?
Oh wow! I'd say Nadal. As a lefty.
Yeah.
And his top spin. The way he top spins, brings the racket up the same side.
I believe he was a born righty, right, Rafa?
Oh my God! I don't know.
I believe I think I remember reading about him that Rafa was a born righty, and his uncle coach there wanted him to give players trouble, and said and we're going to start you with being a lefty. And so he started hitting left. That's why his backhand is just as powerful in many respects as his forehand. It's a great backhand.
Yeah.
But I believe that's why. I believe that there's truth to that. I hope I'm right. But I think I read that years ago that he was a born righty, which is a very interesting story.
Yeah, thanks for filling me in.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Federer's my guy, but you really can't go wrong with any of them.
No, I know it's hard to jock. I mean, I like Nadal's personality from what I've seen and listened to, interviews and stuff.
Yes, and they seem to, Rafa and Federer seem to be very genuinely good friends as well as unbelievable rivals too. So that's
so
always
cool.
nice.
Yeah, you can be both.
And Djokovic, throw him in the mix. So great players. But anyway, back to the music. I know you got. Let's see, what do we on now, Lily? We got.
Move on to the
upper and lower level divergence. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's on from the last concert, which is good to play a couple from the 2016 because.
Why don't you kick that in, Lily? Because we're flying gay. This tends to happen on this show. The thing flies by before you know it. So we'll make sure we keep getting to the music. I'll pull it up here.
Yeah, because it's with saxophone, but the sax you can't hear the saxophone too much till the solo part.
And are you your first instrument, was it piano?
Yeah,
it was piano. So when did you first sit down and play?
Well, my mother made me. I think when I was 5, she
really?
made us all start on piano, and I played a little violin, studied violin, but I didn't.
Yeah, your piano was the one.
Yeah, but for sure. But the thing is, the advantage of the violin strings is that I write for. I know string. I know the ranges and some techniques, and that I know what works.
Why is it that so many even the pop stars of today, you hear when they write songs that even if their main instrument is guitar or their main instrument is whatever, so many of them say they end up writing songs on the piano because that's just for whatever reason, it seems like they write on the piano. What's the reason for that?
It probably could be, for sure, maybe not for everybody, but is the layout. I mean, it's right there. You see everything that's going on. I mean, guitar, I can't even imagine playing guitar, but if you're working with harmony, you want to be on a chordal instrument, which the piano's the easiest to see what's going on.
Gotcha. A chordal instrument. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's, what am I trying to say? Accordion. Yeah, the famous Argentinian, Piazzolla.
Yes.
Astor Piazzolla. There were 3 chordal instruments in his albums, at least the one I have. Banjo and guitar and piano. And they're so rich, harmony, I love it. But, when you're playing with a guitar as a pianist, playing with guitars, jazz, you have to really work on voicing, because you don't want your voicings, in the left hand, the piano, with the guitar to clash. I mean, duplication is okay, but it can be hard to
I bet.
Work that out sometimes. So one instrument can just drop out, when... Yeah, this is a sax solo, and it's a little interlude. Yeah, I really like what she...
Beautiful.
That's a good example of a vamp. They're just 2 chords.
Yeah.
And listen to what she's doing with it. I mean, it's just, she does a lot more than I did.
That's why our radio listeners don't have the benefit of this, but I'm getting to watch a live video of this. I'm seeing a lot of head bobbing.
Wait, that's right. I wanted to make sure you got some video. Yeah.
Yeah, the crowd was definitely enjoying that. So that's good. Does that bother you at all if you have a? Every audience is different. I mean, even at rock shows you go to, you have different crowds. Some crowds are more energetic. Some crowds listen more and are quieter. It doesn't mean bad or good, but sometimes it's just different. Do you notice that as a performer, or when you're up there, you're so engaged with the group you're playing with that's really it?
Yeah, well, they're all very quiet though, because it is a concert,
yes.
and they know
they're probably not supposed to be jumping around, right?
No, they wouldn't, especially in a church setting, or it's parashol.
You'd have to be asked to leave, probably.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't even know. I wouldn't notice maybe if somebody did get up and dance, and that's fine actually.
Yeah, I guess that answers my question. So you're so locked in though of what's going on up there.
Yeah, but I mean, if people started talking or saying, then that would bother me.
Because you could hear that.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But and I don't want kids there that might start screaming. No, I can't.
That would just completely throw you off.
Yeah.
What happens when? I mean, I'm sure you've had bad. What's the worst moment that's happened? I'm sure you've had some.
Oh my God. I wasn't gonna. I didn't think to tell you because I didn't think it's that important. But since you asked, it was on this concert, and I was using my Yamaha synth.
This very concert right here.
Yeah.
The one we were. Oh wow.
But it was towards the end. It was a piece, as a matter of because I like to throw in pop stuff too and transcribe like. What is his name? But the piece is called Chicago Opener, and I actually bought the album. Damn it! I wish I could think of his name. He's a keyboard player, and I listen on YouTube, and I got really inspired by this Chicago Opener. And harmonically, it was simple, but we all did so. But what happened was, I wanted to play on the synth because it was that kind of piece, and my engineer, had it all. We all had our own mics, and I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I don't know where it was. It was just before my solo. Maybe it was during my solo of all times, worst times. It just stopped. Something disconnected.
Oh wow!
And the acoustic piano, it was right there next to it. But he ran over. You can see it in the video. But we eliminated that piece from the CD Baby release because I didn't want to. And he whatever he tried to do didn't work. And so I just jumped over to the piano and picked up where I left off.
Oh man!
But it was really, really unnerving. And
well, that's the nature of the live performance, right?
Yeah, right. But no more since.
No more since.
Well, since I mean, I wasn't going to anyway. But that kind of,
Yeah. We'll keep that streak going. No more technical difficulties.
Yeah, I don't want to drag the thing around. I mean, I just don't need all this extra. Yeah.
Let's jump on to the next one here. What do we got? We have Careless Grooves.
Now, the reason I put this in because I think it would appeal to most. It's George Michael's.
Oh yes, they're different.
Yes.
I was wondering if that's that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Careless Whispers from the 70s. I don't know.
Probably.
Or early age. I had the sheet music for all those decades, and suddenly, I don't know what triggered it, but I might have just pulled it out when I was packing or looking at it, and I packing to move. I mean, and then oh my God, I could write use these changes, which is okay. I mean, as long as you
were inspired by the actual George Michael song? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't want it to be just that, so I thought, I'll put a little samba groove in between. I have all these choruses of very simple chord change, 4 minor chord, 1 sus or something, and threw in these two major chords that I wanted to use for the samba thing. And so, actually, it was a big hit. It was the best performed piece a year ago, September in Portland, but I'm just warning you, giving you a heads up that it's just from an H2, like it's not professionally recorded.
Gotcha.
So.
Here, we'll play it. I can control it as we go.
This is a little intro I wrote, but you'll hear
How often would you say you are inspired by pop music that you hear?
Well, actually, more and more because a friend, he's a cousin of a cousin who, again, it was one of these totally unexpected, at a memorial service for a mutual cousin. I saw him there. I hadn't talked to him for decades, and I went over to talk to him. It's at the same table, and turns out I didn't even know he was a pop jazz guitarist and a composer.
Wow.
I was like, holy! So we started. And so we sent each other links for all kind, that neither of us knew of the other. And he said that Pat Metheny was his, and he just had a whole lot of examples of his music that he
very nice
sent me. And I have some charts of Pat Metheny. I have.
Do composers talk to composers differently? Is that would I even understand what a composer is talking to a composer? Like is it a whole different language? Like, are you guys I can imagine you using lingo that I have no idea what we're talking about.
Well, it can be on any level. It could be just on an emotional level, which is with the audience. But it could easily be. I was talking chord structures, and that's what we were doing. This guy would send me, the chord changes for something, and I had trouble actually hearing some of them on the link he sent me. But what was it? Oh, yesterday. That was a perfect example. I went to Staples to pick up the poster, which is a large, enlargement of that, and I had tennis, and usually I'm knocked out for 2 or 3 hours, but I thought, damn, I need a drink, and Applebee's is right next to Staples in Seabrook. I thought, I haven't been in there for months. I'm gonna go in there, and I'm really hungry. So they had these, because they have half price drinks. So I had a margarita. It was really good.
Applebee's has half-price drinks?
Yeah, from 2 to 5 every day.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, Newburyport, Massachusetts doesn't have happy hour, right? I found that out.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're just gonna call it something different, right?
Well, no, you still pay full price of the drink, right? Half price food. But, so all of a sudden the waitress, nobody comes up, you know. It was used to be this woman, you know, waitress. All of a sudden this guy comes up. He looked he's a bodybuilder. He told me, you know, and he looked, and I don't know, maybe 40ish, maybe about your age. I don't know what you mean. And so he started talking, and I had my scores. It's just a weird thing. I brought the scores into the restaurant because I thought, well, I'm waiting myself. He looked at that and he said, well, so we started talking, and all of a sudden we're talking about harmonic structures and all, you know, the slash chords and polychords. He knows that he's a consummate musician. He plays everything, piano, guitar, a lot of, I guess, I don't know.
What a small world.
Dante's, and he lives in north of, I don't know where it's in, Derry, New Hampshire. He said he'd come to the concert, but I mean, this is something that just never would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he said Applebee's is closing Saturday. I said I'll come back in another minute to talk to you some more. He said we're.
All sorts of information.
Yeah, and he knows he has a studio and he has all the equipment. He uses Pro Tools and something else I don't know the name of, but I didn't recognize. So it's like.
And who's on
what
the clarinet here? Is that?
That's the flute. That's the same flutist that's playing. He's soloing. I want to make sure they all get a chance to solo.
Yeah.
Improvise. It makes it much easier for me. Have to keep. So here's
sorry.
Michael's change. You know, these you might recognize it. So. This is kind of an interplay with the piano and the flute that I wrote.
It's very creative. You happy with that when it was all said and done?
Yeah, I am. And I always run everything by Vardan. I mean, I hardly have Skype lessons with him anymore, but he'll give me a thumbs up. And like this piece I wrote for this coming concert, Voices of Obseppi, that's his last name, Obseppi.
Oh, okay.
And it's a lot of his, I got really glued to his concerts online, and I'm going to write a piece that's using a lot of these ideas, plus that I had studied with him anyway, but oh my God, is he going to think, is this too close to him, some of his stuff, and he said, this is great, and he loved that 9/16, because that's the kind of thing he'll...
So you're ready for here's a real amateur question for you. If you're obviously very keen at reading the music, and I noticed that you're very locked in on the music here. If you're playing could you do like take yourself away from this? Could you be like a piano bar? Could you do that sort of playing just off the cuff like that? Could you do that with, or do you have to be structured with the music? Are you very centered in on the actual music notes and reading the music?
That's the thing in jail. Like say the chart, I play at Brown Sugar. Thursday night. I only take charts. I brought them all here. There's like hundreds of that. I mean, I thought this is a great gig because
you put a lot of time into these charts.
Oh, the scores, But the charts, I mean, those are famous. I mean, I play Moonlight in Vermont. Sentimental Mood. I mean, stuff, and then some upbeat stuff. But for dinner, it works really well. Just have the ballads and. No, that's a piece of cake.
It is really. That's what I thought you'd say. Yeah, I was just curious because I bet that is the answer.
Well, I could get away with just playing melodies, but that's not. That's a sort of a waste of my time. I mean, I need the money, but it's like, I try to I try to work on new ideas or connecting or whatever. And sometimes I just feel like I don't want. I can't get into. It's a good for a digital piano. It's good though, but some people come up and say, "Oh, that was beautiful," but I feel like. Sort of what you said. I could just get away, just kind of float around. I could play 2 or 3 chords and no and I mean, it would sound so pretty.
You'd get all sorts of applause you'd be given.
Well, there's no applause at the restaurant, but I'm just saying.
No applause at the restaurant? Come on, that's a bad restaurant.
Oh, I don't. Oh, no, you're right. No, I'm wrong. There's some applause. There's light applause, but no, not like a room
I understand.
Full. And it's not supposed to. But, it's tunes that I've either played from way back. I've played tons of now. I had this job since a year ago, July or whatever, and so that's easy. I do spend some time warming up. Otherwise my fingers are kind of.
I got you.
Especially with the arthritis, but.
I bet that's going to be a real issue, right? When you're playing piano, I can imagine playing every day for how many years? That's got to be a real issue.
No, not every day. I might go 2 or 3 weeks without playing at all, depending on what else is.
Is that intentionally to give yourself a rest?
No, it's just too much else. I get derailed, or I don't feel like it. I need a lot of downtime. But no, the problem is it's sort of fed on itself. I mean, I think some of this is caused, it's this finger mostly, but from switching from class to jazz, where you learn to comp. And so your fingers are like that. It's the same when you're gripping. All the things I like to do, tennis and rowing, and, you're gripping, and that's the worst thing,
Yeah.
So what I've done after all that, I do comp for the the brown sugar, for those pieces still. But I make a point, and that's good to mention that in my compositions, I do a lot of broken, and that's a lot of what Vardan, just broken, and that's sort of a classical technique like Mozart, just called Alberti. But I do it with all kinds of different, contemporary jazz concepts, which is what he teaches. Sounds like some open sounds, just fourths and fifths, and all kinds. Just change one note or something, and it changes the flavor. Anyway, so that's really good for my left hand to keep doing that, and that's important, stimulant or trigger for writing with left hand, with my left hand.
Okay. And now that you mentioned the left hand, another amateur question. I never really played piano. I tried to teach myself a little bit, but so your left hand is your strong hand.
Yeah, because I'm lefty, yeah.
Do you have to work, does your right hand fall behind? Do you have to, like if you were throwing, or if I'm throwing a baseball and my right hand is the strong hand, my left hand is not going to be as strong unless I really work at it. Is that the same for piano? Do you have to toughen up your right hand?
Well, you know what I've found? That's an interesting question.
Oh, it happens. You're not the first one to do that with the microphone. Don't worry. They get in the way sometimes.
I didn't know if I was too close. Is that, let's see, what were we saying? That, I'm heavy-handed because, like in comping, there's one piece, well, actually, I didn't give it to you, but there's another piece I want you to play with Tracy on a standard song called The Song Is You. It's by Jerome Kern, I think.
Do we have that up? Should we pull that up?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. That's on here. That's on here. So just play that. But
which one is it? Track.
The Song Is You.
The Song Is You. Let's see. I'll find it. Go ahead. Keep talking. I got it. Track 7.
Yeah. So my comping in the left hand for these types of tunes is too heavy. Yeah. And I'm too strong on the downbeat, and that's not a cool thing to do in jazz. You don't want to always come crashing down on the downbeat. And so I find that sometimes when I'm listening or I've recorded something, my right hand, because, it's playing linearly, usually just one note at a time all of a sudden, and I'm playing 4 or 5 notes in the left hand. The left hand will overshadow the right hand, and that's really not good in jazz. When you're just playing chords, they're supposed to be in the background.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the bass.
So it's not that bad of a question then. That does happen. The heavy.
Yeah, it's a good point because I hadn't thought to mention. I didn't. There's a million things I haven't thought to mention.
You can't cover it all. You can't teach me to be a pianist here in one show.
No, but it's something I actually I try to work on.
I'm gonna play this one here as the
Songs You play. Tracy's solo is really cool, and that got a lot of applause at the concert.
Oh, you know what? I got to be over here. Actually, is where I got to be. Sorry.
And
I think it's CDA. Actually, there we go.
Yeah, it's played a lot here too. I mean, I heard it just yesterday.
Actually, before I want to make sure, because we're getting late in the show here, I wanted to ask you one other thing too that might be a good general appeal. I always say I love the piano. I think it's to listen to. I think it's one of my favorite things to listen to. There's nothing better than just hearing. I'll go solo. I love it in big pieces, whatever. I always say I wish my dad, who has had a band his whole life, he was in music. I wish he forced me to sit down and learn how to play. It wasn't cool when I think you started at 5. It wasn't cool when I was growing up to play the piano. I was playing baseball and doing all this other stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
but I wish I did. I grew up and I said, I wish I had lessons. I wish I had a foundation here that I learned as a child.
Yeah, it's sad. I've heard that from other people.
Have you?
Yeah. I remember Governor Dummer Academy. My mother used to teach violin there, and the arts was or music. They were really discouraged. The boys were sissies. If they wanted to play. It's not that way.
No,
thank God.
It's certainly not.
It's changed.
Trust me. Yeah. But I wish I did. I think it's a great thing to learn. I mean, any instrument is I guess is good, but I wish I was forced to sit down and play a little bit when I was younger. But
yeah, this is her solo.
I feel like you might have just let me in a little bit there on another something you feel strongly about. What do you think about the arts in the schools? Not enough?
Oh, that's kind of a large scale mega. So I don't know how to. I mean, I would never teach public schools, but I don't know. I hear that it's not enough. So, yeah, it's a shame, and there's not enough outdoor time either. Right? Yeah. Aren't recesses? I mean, I've seen recesses at various schools here, but I mean, you hear that.
It just seems like when they cut money, it seems like music tends to be the first on the chopping block a lot of times, which I know musicians don't get too happy about. But
yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I guess bands are what a lot of kids end up learning instruments from that wouldn't otherwise, because a large, know what.
And you said your mom made you sit down and start playing, right?
Yeah, she is a violinist. She made us all start.
It's hard. It's hard to learn. Especially at the early going when it's not sounding right. Was it just she was going to make you stay there until you got it, or did you find a love even in making mistakes?
I don't remember. All I remember, most of what I remember is the teacher that would come, Mrs. Marshall, Edith Drew Marshall.
Mrs. Marshall, okay.
And she came in this little VW bug, it was in Newbury. We had 22 acres of land out there in Old Pine Island Road. She'd come in with stacks of music, filling her little bug, falling off the back window and all this. I mean, she'd come in, she'd sit at the upper register, and my mother would be in the kitchen making supper, I guess, I don't know. And I don't know, I guess, I sort of look forward to lessons. I don't know, she was...
You did look forward,
I liked her, Mrs. Martin. But I've heard back then, there was a lot of wrist slap. I mean, some teachers were still doing
that. Yeah, that was definitely a thing,
no, we didn't have anything. I in the bridge, this is the bridge, the middle section of a jazz tune is called the bridge, ABA. Yeah, it was a little classical technique. See there, that one, that Al Berry thing, get my left hand on. See, the rest of the time I was doing this.
Okay, would you believe it? We ran through here.
Yeah,
it goes by fast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I want to give this one more shout out here before we go. It's Sunday, November 17th, 3 p.m., 28 Pleasant Street. It's the Unitarian Universalist Parish Hall. No tickets, but you said a $15 suggested donation, which it says right here on the flyer. People want to check you out beforehand, you can go to gaypearson.com. Is that right?
Yeah, all these YouTubes and albums.
Perfect. All right. And anything you'd like to say to encourage people to come on out? Because I'm sure you'd like a nice big crowd over there if possible.
Well, yeah, it hasn't been the past years, but because I'm looking forward to a full house this time, actually, because of all my new connections. Yeah. I'm back in the Army through the Senior Center. I've met, and tennis club, I don't know, maybe a couple. But
get some of the tennis players out there, huh?
Well, actually.
Is that because you're beating them all? They're all bitter because you're winning these matches?
No, I'm not playing Matt. It's just taking clinics.
Just lessons,
yeah. I'm not. I mean, I could do the but I'm afraid I'll regress into some bad habits. So I'd rather just have the teacher just on my case all the time to do something.
Perfectionist. I told you. I think you're a perfectionist and you don't even know it.
Yeah, well, there's an element of that. Yeah, it's not a lot of things. If you saw my house, you'd think, whoa, what is this? What is she? So yeah, I think I really feature all these new compositions, which are really very listenable, and some of them are based on classical compositions. Some of my favorite Bartok's Third Piano Concerto, I actually extracted as an excerpt of that in there. But that's when I get onto my own ideas, how I'm going to fill it in with stuff that sort of relates to that theme. And then there's Prokofiev and Ravel concerti piece I wrote around that, and when I wrote it, I was very inspired. That was it was a rainy day in October in Maine.
Not that you remember these things.
What?
Not that you remember these things. Yeah, of course.
No, I did certain. Yeah, because that piece really can. And actually, I performed that for the Back Cove concert, and there's every year Back Cove Contemporary Composers Concert in Portland, Maine. And suddenly, I get $184 royalty check in my account, and it's like, how on earth? Because I didn't submit anything for where I wasn't doing that. I didn't know how to do it.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. Somebody. So I wrote to the guy who had been in charge of organizing the concert. He said, no, he didn't submit individual, people's pieces. And so anyway,
wow,
I just had to spend that amount of money on something else. All of a sudden, I get it.
Okay, thank you. This was a pleasure, Gay. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was one of these serendipitous.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck at Sunday, November 17th. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for another great week here on Afternoon Drive. Bye-bye now.